Welcome to Jobs with Jodi, a podcast produced by the National Peace Corps Association's Global Reentry program, aimed at addressing career topics of interest to the returned Peace Corps volunteer community. Thanks so much for tuning in this week as I welcome some very special guests who will speak to the concept of national service and employers of national service. They'll be sharing about their own experiences within national service and how that has really impacted their distinguished careers so far. So let's go ahead and get started. Without further ado, let's begin. I'm going to introduce our first guest, Erin Dolan, who is the Acting Chief of Program Operations at the Corporation for National and Community Service, AmeriCorps, that is. Easier to say. Erin is, in this role, she really serves as principal advisor to the CEO, and that's for operational, policy, and management issues of CNCS programs, so including AmeriCorps and Senior Corps. She's been at CNCS for the past 21 years, having served in 9 different positions, wow, along the way. Erin began her affiliation with national service right after graduating from college. She's a proud AmeriCorps alum, having served at AmeriCorps as an AmeriCorps member with City Year in City Year Boston, that is, and then as a team leader with AmeriCorps NCCC, which is where I first met Erin. We were fellow staff members at the Capital Region campus of NCCC. In her free time, Erin volunteers with her community as a Girl Scout leader, with the Alexandria School Board Budget Advisory Committee, and as a board chair of local nonprofit organization. Welcome, Erin.
Thank you, Jodi.
It's so great to have you here. Thank you for taking time from your very busy day. I know your position is it's a very big position, lots of responsibilities, and it keeps you on your feet. So thanks so much for just joining us briefly for this.
Happy to be here. Thanks.
Great. And can you start out by telling us, just sharing a little more about your personal experience and how your commitment to national service has evolved or emerged?
Sure. So like many folks, as I was considering what to do after college, I was like, well, what could I do? I needed to take a year off between undergrad and graduate school in my mind. And I had run into some AmeriCorps members in my college setting. I went to college in Boston, and I would see these folks around town in the red jackets, and I thought to myself, like, well, what are they doing? And after further exploration, found out about the City Year program, which was one of the initial AmeriCorps grantees. And essentially, City Year was an opportunity to come together to work with folks that are different from yourself, in an education-based setting. So what that meant for me is I was a 4th grade teacher's assistant at a small school in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts, serving with 12 different folks who had very different experiences than my own. What the year of service did crystallize for me is that teaching was not my calling, but it also crystallized for me that I wasn't ready for a graduate school experience. And so being in a national service setting, serving with folks that are different from myself, problem solving, working together, really opened up my eyes that there were other opportunities. And so that's where AmeriCorps and CCC came into play for me, actually through a connection with a fellow City Year alum who had been selected to serve as a team leader. And he forwarded an opportunity for me, and that's how I ended up serving years 2 and 3 with AmeriCorps and CCC. So if I'd ever anticipated that my 1 year of service would actually go into 3, I would have said absolutely not. And then certainly I would not have anticipated that parlaying that experience into really a career in national service afterwards. But I'm so grateful for the experience that City Year provided me in opening up this door that, a group of committed citizens working together can actually solve our community problems, can make a difference. It was really, kind of one of those crystallizing experiences for me that opened up a huge world that I'm so proud to be a part of and to meet, the wonderful folks like yourself through that career kind of post-service.
Thank you. It was an honor to work with you. That was such a great experience down at the Capital Region campus. And you have somewhat addressed this, but I'm wondering if you can talk a little more about how national service, how it impacted your career trajectory. I mean, tell us a little bit about what happened after you became and did the team leader position at AmeriCorps and Triple C Capital Region campus. Where did you go from there?
Sure. So at that point, I really was fully bitten by the national service bug. I had this wonderful experience, and in looking for my life after AmeriCorps, I was entering into what probably a lot of folks from our PCV community as well do, which is perusing whatever the precursor to USA Jobs was, because this was a long time ago. And was really looking for opportunities to continue kind of this service career. At the time, AmeriCorps had an opportunity as a field recruiter, and that job was open in 12, there were 12 positions open across the United States. And I thought to myself, here I'd had just this wonderful 3-year experience. I felt really comfortable in being able to sell what national service could do for you, because I was comfortable with kind of what it had done for me in terms of these lifelong connections, skill development, opportunities to go new places, see new things, meet new people, that I thought to myself, wow, this is like really a dream job to be able to actually go out and expose folks to this opportunity. Because at the time, this was pretty new into AmeriCorps' existence. We were year 4 or 5 when I joined the Corporation for National Services staff. Right. And for 2 years, I really traveled around the Eastern Seaboard doing presentations to college students about the opportunity to serve in AmeriCorps. And ironically, we had a lot of great partnerships with our Peace Corps colleagues, because we were really looking for that same type of candidate that was interested in making a commitment to serve. And right. So I spend a ton of time with the Peace Corps recruiters in Boston, as well as the ones in New York City, actually doing events together, because, certainly at different points in your life, you may be interested in national service or international service. And a lot of times too, at the very beginning, it was really an education piece of letting people know that this opportunity to serve in the United States existed as well. So that was really the beginning of my federal career, and was just this wonderful opportunity to kind of make all of these connections throughout the agency, and then throughout some of our field offices, and certainly, with the folks that actually ended up choosing to serve in our programs. And it's been, a great opportunity since.
That's wonderful. And it's interesting because when you said, it was great to recruit together, right? Because you're really looking for the same kinds of skills. I know when I was in my position, as the training director for NCCC Capital Region Campus, I remember in my Life After AmeriCorps program and talking to the core members about what a perfect fit it is. Like, it's a natural transition from the AmeriCorps NCCC experience, which is kind of that, some people call it domestic Peace Corps, and other you all there probably hate that. It's more like, nope, you're the international version of. I'm just kidding. We go back and forth, but I remember the telling people, wow, if you really enjoy, working on this team and doing these short-term projects and traveling around and whatever, it's a next natural step to put you in that foreign environment and maybe more independent, but also, collaborating. It's a natural fit if you like it, like that could be something to explore. And so I know I just see such parallels there. There's such a great connection between the two.
Absolutely. And we often see folks that have chosen to serve first in AmeriCorps, go to Peace Corps, and then alternatively, we see a lot of returned Peace Corps volunteers join us in our programs. And certainly this last kind of go round when COVID took hold, we have seen a ton of Peace Corps volunteers who were evacuated come into service through AmeriCorps.
Exactly. They want to continue their service and they can't go back abroad. And they want to do the same kind of, work. And there's some really neat work going on out there too, with like contact tracing, right? And so many different exciting opportunities. Erin, can you talk a little more about the national service movement and kind of how it came into being, and maybe define it for people who might not be as familiar with it? I know the concept of national service and
Sure. I mean, the concept of national service has actually been around for a really, really long time. The origins of national service probably go back into the 30s with the creation of the Civilian Conservation Corps. That
right.
was the first large scale gathering of, young men mostly, who were joined together to do these large public works projects. I think if you've ever visited a national park or a U.S. forest, you've likely come across something constructed by the Civilian Conservation Corps.
Right.
And, we were fortunate that during the first Bush administration, Bush 1, he created a sort of pilot program on national service. And gave an opportunity to create, the National Commission on National Service, and as sort of, again, a pilot program to think about and crystallize what would a national service program in the United States look like. And I think it was this opportunity to bring together, military leaders, and public service sector leaders to think about engaging a whole new group of individuals together in, a service opportunity here in the United States. And then
Right.
certainly, with Adam and my experience in the NCCC, we were really like a precursor even to the precursor of AmeriCorps, because NCCC got its start right before AmeriCorps. It's essentially 1 year older than AmeriCorps. And that was actually a wonderful opportunity to really leverage the skills and talents of retiring military leaders, downsizing military bases, and really thinking about what could civilian service look like in a modern day version of the CCC. And so that opportunity of engaging all of those populations together really kind of stood up this first residential service program that Adam and I had the chance to participate in. And then, of course, with the Clinton election, we had the opportunity to really crystallize what had started in the Bush administration into the AmeriCorps legislation that led to national service opportunities.
Right.
And over the years, that investment in national service has grown exponentially. We're up to now about $800 million going out into opportunities across the United States. It supports about 270,000 positions.
Wow.
That's through both the AmeriCorps and Senior Corps programs. And I think it really provides that opportunity from basically 16 years old to 100 plus for Americans to serve their communities. And I think it's just such a wonderful opportunity to really be part of something bigger than yourself, and really thinking about how national service can solve like every local problem. I think the other hallmark, Jodi, of the national service kind of movement, or how we got it off the ground, is it's so critical to be linked to the community. The thing that works about national service is not us going into a community and saying, hey, we really think you need some tutors here, but rather the community coming together and saying, we want to solve this problem for our children. We want to set up a tutoring program. And really, national service is the secret sauce that helps bring those resources to bear. We're a human resources solution. For the most part, our grant dollars go to fund positions, whether it's a Senior Corps volunteer or an AmeriCorps member. They're funding those opportunities across the country. And I think that hallmark of working so closely with the community is what makes national service work, because we all know how it feels like to be told what we need to do rather than being part of the solution to create what we want, for our communities. So it's been a wonderful trajectory, and to see the demand increase across the country has really been such a wonderful opportunity. And demand, both for the resources for grantees, the nonprofit organizations we partner with, but also demand to participate in our programs. Certainly, over the last 6 months, we're seeing, really I hate saying the word unprecedented because everything's unprecedented right now, but
Of course.
really unprecedented levels of applications to serve in our
Right.
program. Of course, some of that has to do with the economy, but the other part, I think, has to do with just this desire to be part of the greater good, of the part of the solving the problems, as the needs are so great across the country right now.
Adversity brings us together, right?
It does.
And,
it does.
And that, exactly. There's a stat that I absolutely love, and I'm not even sure where it's from, but it's about AmeriCorps dollars. And it was for the investment, for every dollar that is invested in AmeriCorps, I think it was $17 come back to the community. Is that right? And maybe where's that stat from? I love it.
Yeah, we just actually, there are 2 return on investment studies. One was done by a private organization, Voices for National Service, that advocates for national service funding and support externally from the agency, because of course, as a federal employee, we don't advocate, we educate. But the other one, we actually have some forthcoming return on investment studies that we're about to publish that share that same really terrific information about what it means for the community in terms of leverage resources. But I also think it's really important also the community experience, the volunteer experience, the member experience. That's kind of the unquantifiable side of the house as well. And we're doing our best to try to put some quantification around it, because I think it's a really interesting piece, especially, as we think about the likelihood for AmeriCorps members to be connected to employment post-service, or senior corps volunteers to have longer lifespans because of the volunteer service that they do. It's really a unique and interesting part of the work that we're doing.
Yeah, and I think with Peace Corps, I feel like AmeriCorps, I think, does a better job with quantifying, and I think we're moving, or Peace Corps is now moving in that direction and really trying to become better, because they realize that it is very important. Because quantifying like that is a big sales, if you will, not pitch, but like convincing people, hey, this makes sense. For every dollar that goes in, $17 or whatever the newest one will be. I'll look forward to hearing that study. But Erin, let's move on and talk a little bit about the Employers of National Service program. And, these are employers who honor and recognize the value of national service, Peace Corps service, right? Can you tell us a little bit more about that movement?
Absolutely, Jodi. This has been a wonderful partnership with Peace Corps, National Peace Corps Association, AmeriCorps alums, and the Corporation for National Community Service. Essentially, this was an initiative that started about 5 or 6 years ago now, and it was an opportunity for employers to recognize the value and the skills and talents that national service and alumni and Peace Corps alumni bring to a potential employer. One of the things over the years in conversations with our employer network that has been really exciting for me to find out about is, I remember talking with the Chief Human Capital Officer of Sodexo, and he says, I'm not going to call them, soft skills anymore. I'm going to call them essential skills. And I know that AmeriCorps alumni and Peace Corps alumni bring to the table the essential skills my workforce needs.
Oh, I love that.
Really, that has really resonated with me. I mean, I think you probably told me that 5 years ago, and I still think about that conversation to say that is really what we're talking about. We're talking about individuals that have committed to serve their country. They have worked with folks that are different from themselves. They've learned to compromise, problem solve, project manage. And if you think about the skills that an employer wants to bring to the table, they want their employees to have those skills. So right now, Employers of National Service is a network of about 620 employers, and that's private sector, public sector, state and local government. And essentially to become an employer of national service, we ask employers to commit to honoring and recognizing national service alumni in the application process. But what we don't do is actually prescribe the way that has to happen. We are flexible enough to let the employers decide what that means to them. So I can give you a few examples. Like the state of Philadelphia will honor national service experience by offering 5 points on the civil service exam. The employer Timberland you have a dedicated application box for AmeriCorps alumni.
Nice.
We have whole states that have become employers of national service, like the state of Virginia. They also recognize the national service experience during their application process. So I think that's been the beauty of the program, is the flexibility. But every week we get more employers reaching out to us about how they can get more of, access to more qualified candidates. And I think any of us that have ever done any hiring understand quantity of applications is not the problem nowadays with the internet.
Right.
For every program listing employment listing you have, you'll get tons and tons of applications.
Right.
It's really, how do you discern the quality of the candidates that are in front of you? And we know, actually, also from research, Jodi, we published a research study that I can share with you that having national service experience on your resume actually does improve the opportunity to be hired by an employer. We did a double-blind study of individuals that had AmeriCorps service on their applications and those that didn't, and then followed up with those folks, the hiring officials afterwards, to look at who got interviews, who got selected. So it's been a really terrific experience and a wonderful partnership with Peace Corps and National Peace Corps Association and AmeriCorps alums to make sure that we continue to highlight, national service, international service experience as those type of qualities that employers really want to tap into.
Right. So, when you're talking about, how the employers of national service, how they can give, preference to, or, credence to, they can help in certain ways, whether it's in, Pennsylvania, like you said, where they give some of the points. For federal service, what are the advantages they can offer in federal service? Is it around non-competitive eligibility, or how does that look for honoring as an EONS member federal agencies?
We have many actual federal agencies in our network, and it does look a little bit different depending on each of the offerings. I think you're right. Certainly, non-competitive eligibility is in direct hire authority is a really attractive feature for many of our federal partners, but it's also important to note that not all AmeriCorps members have non-competitive eligibility. It's actually exclusive to our AmeriCorps Vista program, because AmeriCorps Vista and Peace Corps are covered by the same legislation in the Domestic Volunteer Service Act. And so the rest of our AmeriCorps network actually doesn't have that non-competitive eligibility. So federal employers still can provide preference, and they can do that in a variety of ways. Like, for example, at the Corporation for National Community Service, we actually have 2 separate questions that distinguish candidates in the application process and provide some priority ranking. And that's, when you indicate that you are a national service alumni applying to a position at our agency. And again, it looks a little bit different. Again, on each of the listings, we've been working with USA Staffing to see, how we could even make it easier for folks in the future to highlight their national service experience. And I think you'll see it in a lot of the listings that agencies are posting. You'll see specific call outs for national service experience. And that has been a labor of love from a lot of the different folks that have been on the EONS team over the years.
Great. Thanks, Erin. You're listening to Jobs with Jodi, a podcast of the NPCA designed to address career and transitional topics of need for the returned volunteer population. I'm talking with Erin Dahlin, currently acting chief of program operations for CNCS, about national service and the EONS program and movement. So, Erin, I have a couple more questions I'd like to ask of you before we move on to our second guest, and certainly then maybe bounce back and forth between the two of you, as you both have such great insight. Can you tell me who leads the EONS initiative, and what activities do they engage in to try to help expand, I guess, their network?
Sure. So there is actually a group of leaders at each of the respective partner organizations that join
Mm-hmm.
together monthly to talk about the Employers of National Service strategy. And so that's leaders from National Peace Corps Association, Peace Corps, the Corporation for National Community Service, and the Service Year Alliance, which has
Gotcha.
assumed the AmeriCorps alumni organization. And in that meeting, we discuss kind of what the priorities for the next month will be. We do send quarterly newsletters out to our employers. We talk about the potential for job fairs, job listing. We do have a job, we make job listings available
Mm-hmm.
in a couple different places, including on the Office of the Third Goals job website. We also, certainly work kind of internally as well on the Corporation for National Community Service website. You can find a link to every job page from our Employers of National Service to the Direct Connect opportunity that they have for AmeriCorps and Peace Corps alumni. So I think we still have aspirations of making it even easier for people to connect with those opportunities in the future. But right now, at least, you can filter on the Corporation for National Community Service website by location in the country, by state, by the type of employer. So there's a lot of different ways that you can at least see who's in the network and where you may be interested in applying.
Gotcha. And I know you mentioned earlier that there are a lot of RPCVs or evacuees that are applying for opportunities with, the national service, movement throughout the states.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm curious if you can explain what kinds of, I guess, what skills make RPCVs or the evacuees good candidates for the leadership type of roles that they might have, and where can they find those leadership roles?
Sure. Thanks for asking that question, Jodi. We've seen a lot of really terrific candidates in both our Vista Leader program as well as our AmeriCorps NCCC Team Leader program, which both Adam and I are alumni of.
Mm-hmm.
And, those opportunities are actually listed on the program website, so I can provide you the links that we can
Great.
include ultimately. And they are recruiting year round for opportunities. We actually got special dispensation as part of the CARES Act to allow for Peace Corps volunteers to have direct access to those Vista Leader positions.
Nice.
And I think it's been a great experience for us to see the wonderful talent and skills that people are bringing to the applicant pool for those Vista Leader positions. Vista Leaders actually are placed across the country to serve as really a mentor and coach for Vista candidates
Gotcha.
who are serving in the nonprofit organization. So you may see, for example, a large-scale Vista project, maybe with Habitat for Humanity, where they have
Sure.
Vista serving at multiple affiliates. You would see a Vista leader serving, sort of in a headquarters role to then coordinate the candidates across all of the affiliates so that they have this common point and common experience and support from the Vista leader. On the other side of the coin, the AmeriCorps NCCC Team Leader experience is certainly one that's unique. It's a peer-led program. Folks that participate in the NCCC program are 18 to 24-year-olds, or now 18 to 26 years old. And the team leader has the sole responsibility to manage the team logistics to include, grocery shopping, housing, project management, the
Right.
service opportunities. So it's really like your own little CEO there of your organization as you're working
Yep.
and living with the folks that you supervise. So
Living,
it
working, and
definitely,
traveling.
yes. And there's definitely this year has been a challenge in a time of COVID. We have some increased protocols for our service opportunities across the country. And it's just been a wonderful privilege to watch how hard people are working to provide this service to communities right now. Wearing masks and social distancing so that we can continue to provide service where it's needed so drastically.
Yes, and that supervisory experience that you talk about, with AmeriCorps and CCC, for example, right? As difficult as it can be at times, it's also very, rewarding and such a skills building right experience in terms of, I see so many of the opportunities as you move up, you have to have supervisory experience. That
Yeah.
gives you hands-on, direct, intensive supervisory experience in all aspects of budget management, this, that, everything, right? That comes
Totally.
with that oftentimes, that can qualify you much quicker for those kinds of supervisory roles than most employees that are on the regular trajectory without national service.
You are 100% correct there. I think there's nothing like supervising a group of your peers. And I still recall, my first opportunity, I was all of, I think, 23 years old and was supervising 13 people, and providing that service. And, there's a lot of life skills built in that opportunity as well, and a lot of learning. So I still am very thankful for the thoughtful folks on my team that helped me become a better leader, because there's nothing like the experience of doing it to help you understand what you're doing wrong as well.
Exactly.
I really appreciate that perspective. And there's still things that I draw on upon, 20 some years later, that really crystallized during that service year experience as a team leader.
Exactly. You really learn by doing. So thank you. And Erin, thank you so much for being
Yeah.
here and willing to talk with us. I am going to move on to our next panelist, our next guest, and but I would love it if you can stay on to answer additional questions, because I would love to get both of your perspectives on some of these questions as well.
Sure. I'll be on.
Okay. Thank you so much. You're listening to Jobs with Jodi, a podcast sponsored by the NPCA's Global Reentry Program. My next guest in today's program, talking about national service and the employers of national service partner organizations and such, is Adam Greenberg, someone who has a very eclectic and just downright fascinating background. He's truly paved his own non-traditional career path, which has included everything from, backpacking and traveling both in the United States and abroad for 13 years. I love that. And combining travel with work with meaning. And his unique jobs have taken him across the country and world, literally and figuratively, from living on and traveling in a vegetable oil-powered school bus as part of a nationwide bio tour, to redesigning a campaign for the popular social enterprise Tom's Shoes, and to a stint working in the White House under the Obama administration. He's clearly on an impressive and really unique path, which he credits largely to setting bold goals and the privilege of being debt-free. So Adam is first to acknowledge the huge role national service has played in his own life, and he served actually 2 terms with AmeriCorps and CCC. First as a Corps member, and then in the supervisory role that we've been talking about, the team leader position. And more recently, he's served as a Peace Corps volunteer with his partner in Zambia, where they had just been approved for a 3rd-year extension when the March COVID-19 took place and mandated the evacuation. So welcome, Adam, and so sorry you were caught up in the whole evacuation. I know you were looks like you were doing great things there, and it's not easy to come back prematurely, but thank you for being here with us today.
Certainly, we didn't want to evacuate, but nobody did, and this entire pandemic is affecting all of us. So
Right.
I'm just grateful. I'm grateful to be healthy, and we're practicing those essential skills that Erin brought up about being flexible.
Right. No, that's all you can do, right? Can you share a bit more about your Peace Corps service and subsequently the impact of being evacuated on you and your partner? How has readjustment been, and go from there?
Sure. Thanks for asking. Yeah. So I served with a partner. Serving together as a couple is a rare thing in Peace Corps, and I'm grateful for the support that we had. Our experience is a bit different in that we were older, in our early 30s, which you don't find among most volunteers. And I give a lot of credit to all the volunteers that serve as a single person alone. It can be a very difficult experience. But we were in Zambia, as you said, we were rural aquaculture promotion extension agents, as they call
Wow,
it.
that's a title.
Yeah, it's a fancy way. It's just a fancy way of saying that we worked in fish farming. We worked with small-scale fish farmers.
Okay.
And the Zambian government has recently declared that protein deficiency is a big issue in Zambia, and so asked
Right.
Peace Corps to work in this program. And so my understanding is Zambia, pre-evacuation, of course, Zambia was the only post in Peace Corps worldwide that had a current aquaculture program.
Really? Oh, I had no idea.
That's what we were told, and it was a wonderful program. I mean, Peace Corps does surveys about volunteer satisfaction throughout terms, and the aquaculture program consistently got the highest marks among volunteers. And I think in part because it's such a tangible way to be involved. Whereas I know that, teaching English, as an example, it's much more difficult in the sense that you don't see the effects of that. And so
Right.
it doesn't always have the highest satisfaction rate among volunteers. I feel very grateful for the work we were able to do in fish farming, and the counterparts that we worked with. We're still in touch with them. We try to call over Google Voice every month or so and follow up and hear how they're doing and what's going on in the community where we live.
Wow, that's wonderful that you're still able to be in touch. And yeah, never easy to have to evacuate. But hopefully, as you, I think, had indicated, you're interested in going back if possible.
Yeah, we are. Unfortunately, we had just been accepted to extend right when this all happened, and we were looking forward to this third year. And part of the work that we were going to be doing was going to be focused on storytelling and filming more videos that share the stories of counterparts and the work that Peace Corps is doing abroad for third goal.
Well, you've already done some great work. I know I had the opportunity to look at some of your videos and interviews, and I was so impressed. And I think people can access those through, is it just your website?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. They're on YouTube under Adam and Leanne. Yeah.
Okay, great. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe the benefits that you found, like the benefits of national service? Like what do the participants get out of it? Monetary types of things, whatever types of benefits there are that you were able to enjoy.
Sure. I mean, NCCC and AmeriCorps in general set me off on an incredible path through my 20s. I am so grateful for what I've been able to do, and I recognize that it's been a tremendous privilege. Maybe I might first set up how I came to this. I received a very generous scholarship to university, and so when I graduated, I was debt free. And in university, I had become involved in a union and living wage organizing campaign with our campus janitors. And that activism, it motivated me quite a lot. And so when I graduated, I didn't articulate it at the time, but I realized in retrospect, I sort of set three informal goals for myself. First, that I would continue to seek to do meaningful work, whatever that might look like in all, the many ways there are to do so.
Right.
That I wouldn't go into debt to do so because, unfortunately, nonprofit work often doesn't pay very well.
Exactly.
And third, I guess, if I could find a way to combine those first two while traveling, that would be amazing. And I said, how could I do that? I know, I'll join the Peace Corps. And it was in my research of the Peace Corps that I discovered AmeriCorps, specifically NCCC. And I said, you know what? Before going abroad, before working on any projects alone, I should first learn about and travel and serve within my own country first, within the U.S. So I joined NCCC in 2007, and I am so grateful I did. And as you said, in that very nice intro you gave me earlier, it took me all across the country and then abroad for a number of years before Peace Corps. And my service with AmeriCorps was a very natural step from being a Corps member to doing some other things in between, and then deciding before going to the Peace Corps abroad, maybe I should first learn about managing a team. So then I returned to NCCC to be a team leader, which, just as a side note, I mean, Peace Corps used to have the slogan that it's the toughest job you'll ever love.
My favorite slogan of Peace Corps ever.
Right. And I would also say that definitely applies to being an AmeriCorps NCCC team leader.
Absolutely.
It's a tough gig, but I loved it. And it's the kind of challenge that, you know, if people are considering the Peace Corps, I would invite, and when I talk with prospective volunteers, I might first recommend that they serve with AmeriCorps. NCCC specifically is a program that I believe every young person would only be so lucky to be a part of.
Exactly. They learn such great skills, right? From Habitat for Humanity projects where you learn how to, you know, build a house, to, you know, all these things. I know people who come out of that, they're so handy.
Yeah, yep. So we first got off on this question, you asked about skills and benefits that members earn and learn. Absolutely, those skills, working on a team, the resiliency, being flexible, all of these things that also translate later into peace, of course. And then there are the other aspects, the practical, logistical things like the financial education award, in which you know, many schools even match that education award and will double it.
Right.
Which is great.
That's
I know
huge.
that. Yeah, and
How much
AmeriCorps also.
How much
Go
is
ahead.
I'm sorry, the education award is how much again?
Yeah, it's equivalent to the Pell Grant. So I think we're just under $6,200. It's like $6,195.
That's great, and that directly goes against your, your loans.
It can go to student loans. It can go to the cost of education. It can go to study abroad programs.
That
you know,
is
essentially
fabulous.
anything that you can get a federal student loan for, you can use the education award for.
And you can use it in the future. The key is up to, isn't it 7 years or something like that?
Yeah, 7
into
years.
The future? That's wonderful. That's great.
Yeah, and you can also use it for a NOLS course with the National Outdoor Leadership School, which is what I actually did, because you know, I was grateful that I had no debt, right? So very fortunate in that regard, and so I applied it to a NOLS course, which is generally a pretty expensive thing, and I don't think I would have sought it out without being able to apply the scholarship to it. But NOLS matched the award and doubled it, which was wonderful.
Matched, which doubled it?
They doubled the award.
That's nice. Yeah.
And
what is NOLS for those who may not know?
Yeah, so it's the National Outdoor Leadership School.
Yes.
And it's an opportunity for people of all ages to embark on outdoor education in an interesting way with a team. I mean, the program that I did was 2 months. It was 1 month of sea kayaking around Vancouver Island.
Wow.
In Canada, and learning about how to live outdoors. We were camping the whole time, followed by a second month of glacial mountaineering in the northern Cascades of Washington State.
Oh my gosh.
An incredible opportunity. I'm so grateful I was able to apply the education award to that, which I probably wouldn't have done without the award, as I said. And then also, you know, AmeriCorps defers the interest on federally subsidized student loans while you're in service. So that's another benefit.
Which again is huge.
Yeah, because, you know, volunteering is a privilege. Being able to volunteer at all. I mean, I've been able to do the path that I've been doing because we need to reform student loan debt. Education is incredibly expensive. It hasn't kept up with cost of living.
Yeah, it's crazy how expensive. Yeah. You know, people get out of undergrad with so much debt, right? And then they go into grad school and they add to it. And then they want to focus on an area that, you know, maybe doesn't pay as much money. And it's just, you can't get out from under it.
Yeah. And I believe that, you know, there are more than 44 million Americans that have more than $1.6 trillion, I think the number is now, of our total student loan debt. And, you know, that's shaping up to be quite a bubble, which could be a problem for the country in a few years. I mean, it already is, but.
Yeah. Well, and I guess, you know, when you are thinking about, you know, your, you know, privilege, if you will, right? You've been privileged to be able to, because of getting through undergrad with no debt, right? You had a very, very generous scholarship that allowed you to do that. You know, talk a little bit, I guess, a little bit more about some of the things, because I think you're doing a little bit on like reforming student loan debt, like you're advocating for that. Like how are you working toward that, and how can AmeriCorps help further with, I guess, student debt? I mean, they pay off part of it, which is great.
So AmeriCorps is doing that, which is obviously important. And I think just spreading the word, making sure that people know that is an option, that, it would be amazing to travel the country in a 15-passenger van working on different service projects. But how do I afford that? And, with AmeriCorps and CCC, all those expenses are covered, health insurance, and deferring student loans might be for many people a thing in which they could say, okay, well, I at least that won't be increasing while I do this opportunity and I gain all these experience with other young people and learn about all these different organizations around the country on important issues. It's just an incredible program. So spreading the word about it, making it more of a well-known thing.
Right.
In my own experience, the past 2 weeks, Peace Corps has been having advocacy calls with congressmen, and I've been on 2 of them myself. I always take the opportunity to talk about our need to expand national service in conjunction with reforming student loan debt, so it's more accessible for more people from diverse backgrounds.
Absolutely. That is great. That is such solid advice there. And I guess I'm curious for both of your perspectives in terms of how do you recommend, or how do you, Adam, put out your skills and such when you're like, how do you notify an EONS member about your service? Like how do you make a case for yourself and why you'd be a great fit for the position? And then for Aaron too, how can they reach out to employers of national service and inquire about opportunities and things like that? It's
Well, I love that the employers of national service exist. So thank you, Aaron, for your work in that. It's important that we make that more of a thing. On job applications in general, you always see the question, are you a veteran? And it's important that our military veterans, they deserve the respect and the benefits that they get.
Absolutely.
I also think I would say, and it's important to acknowledge the service of national service members and volunteers and domestically. Now, certainly we're not putting our lives on the line, and that's something to be honored for the military. Also, domestic service, volunteering, working with organizations on important issues, if it was given more respect towards job opportunities, which is what EONS does, right? That's incredible. And you asked how does that come across in applying for things? Yeah. Well, I think it comes across with the interviewee, with the person applying, when you've lived these experiences. So I think if you first seek to serve and do a program like AmeriCorps, then your experience will likely naturally come out of a result of your lived experience. Another practical tip that I've given in the past was in branding. AmeriCorpsAlums.org used to offer a free email address, and you can get your name at AmeriCorpsAlums.org as a free forwarding service. Nice. And I used to use that on my resume because it's one more opportunity to show that you're an AmeriCorps alum member. Unfortunately, that service was deactivated some time ago, and I had to scramble to reorganize my email. But that was a nice way for members, and if that could be reinstated somehow, I think it's a small thing. But
we got Aaron on the line here. Let's.
Sadly,
Aaron, note that down.
Sadly, I don't manage the AmeriCorps Alumni Network. It's a separate nonprofit organization, but I think we can do our best to say that's a service that alumni recognized.
And Aaron, what other ways do you feel like applicants for positions, how should they really spotlight or draw attention to their service, either national service, either AmeriCorps or Peace Corps, when they apply, I guess, as a hiring official?
The one thing is, I know a lot of, actually both Peace Corps, National Peace Corps Association, and the Corporation for National Community Service have put out resources about highlighting your service experience. And certainly as a hiring official, what I always look for is for certain that direct connection to national service, calling it out, saying the skills
Right.
that you've learned. There's both kind of the qualitative skills, but there's also like what you accomplished in your program, at your position, in your service assignment. And I think those are unique ways in which we are part of a really great network of individuals that have made that commitment. So I think, perhaps we can share some of those links with your fields, Jodi.
Yeah.
Just about like how to talk about national service experience on your resume.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of trying to help people really articulate the service experience a little bit more directly.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thank you so
much.
Yes,
if I might share a story about how that affected me. You mentioned that I worked in the Obama administration. I was fortunate to be a White House intern for a time. And that was a position that never crossed my mind. When Obama was elected, my grandma said to me, she's like, Obama's just been elected. You should work with him. And I thought, Grandma, that's a nice sentiment, but it sounds kind of crazy to me. And then I thought to myself, if that sounds like a crazy idea to me, because I was interested in politics, certainly, but I didn't, no connections, no family connections to DC or thinking that would be a realistic thing. And, I realized if I think that's a crazy idea, most other people probably do too, which means that people aren't applying to be a White House intern. Mm-hmm. So I thought I should apply because nobody's applying. And I used that reverse psychology on myself, and it worked. And I think it worked, and then I got accepted only because a large part of my application was talking about AmeriCorps, and the Obama administration valued national service. And so when I was able, a few years later, to talk with NCCC team leaders during the Life After AmeriCorps Day, I always encourage them, if politics is something you're interested in, and I just want to bring up the idea that if working in the White House is something that you hadn't thought of until right now, I'd encourage you to look into it and apply because, you'd be a great candidate.
And even getting involved with the advocacy types of work that, you mentioned earlier that NPCA does. There's easy ways that you can work on some of the advocacy efforts, around, whether it's in your state or your area. And that's really good experience that can kind of catapult you along the way in those kinds of areas as well. Yep. And Adam, didn't you, I think you had, I think I remember either talking to you or it was on one of the things I was reviewing, but it was how you had written your cover letter. And I think what you had started with, your line or two to get that job, your experience with the intern had been mostly, wasn't it, you made kind of a joke or something a little bit and it worked?
Oh, sure. Okay, and I suppose that would be relevant for interviewing skills people consider. The application said, how did you first hear about the White House internship program? And I said, probably at first from Monica Lewinsky and then from my grandma. And that later came up in the interview. And, the person on the line thought it was funny that I was
your candidness.
That little bit of humor worked for me. It might not work for everybody,
right?
But if that's your style, then go with it and be real, be natural about how you would talk about your experience.
Right. You've got to be cautious in some ways, but at the same time, how you did that and just being very candid, and then your grandma, as well, and it worked for you. So that's wonderful. I guess, I want to maybe ask one or two more questions here and wrap up. But I'm curious as to what, and this may be for you, Aaron, more so, but what, if any, plans are there by EONS members, right, the member partner agencies, the 600 and some strong, to do any kind of a job fair, a virtual job fair? Is there any work toward this? That seems like it would be such a great thing to do, especially right now when everyone's trapped in their homes with COVID-19. But has there been discussion? I know it's much easier said than done, but.
Yeah, Jodi, we have talked about it. I think we're kind of looking for who will be the host organization with that, just because of the logistics of organizing it. But, we continually talk about how we can highlight opportunities for National Service alumni in a combined way. I know in the past, Peace Corps has hosted an EONS job fair. Certainly, the Corporation for National Service has as well. And it would be limited, or it's actually not limited to just employers, but we highlight those employers that have selected to pledge to hire AmeriCorps and Peace Corps alums.
Right.
So the best case scenario would be to look at the normal resources that you would be looking at for jobs. Certainly the jobs board at Peace Corps, I know NPCA does a lot of different outreach efforts, and certainly on the Corporation for National and Community Service website, on the Employers of National Service page.
Okay.
We'll be sure to continue to share and reach out. Our partner organizations do a really nice job of highlighting those opportunities to folks.
So, yeah, and that's great. I mean, there's, certainly the Peace Corps one is just peacecorps.gov/career link. And that's their jobs board that has oftentimes 1,000 or 600 to 1,000 jobs on it. And then, of course, there's the equivalency. What is the equivalency at CNCS? I don't know, Adam, do you know off the top of your head, maybe having done some searching or?
I know that, serve.gov is one website for finding, but I'm not sure if that's specifically the one you'd be.
No problem. And I'm sure folks could also go to just do, AmeriCorps jobs board, Google's our best friend, right?
Yeah. Jodi, you can do nationalservice.gov/partnerships to get to the Employers of National Service jobs board.
Nationalservice.gov/partnerships?
/partnerships. Yep.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's wonderful. That's what our listeners want, are those, areas they can find more jobs and opportunities, and all of that. And I think on that note, I would like to, we'll bring this episode to a close. I'd really like to thank our panelists, Aaron and Adam, both of you, for being here, for sharing your time and your expertise on the topic of national service and employers of national service. And I hope that our listeners are able to benefit from that and be able to really pursue opportunities, some of the opportunities that you've mentioned. And thank you, everyone, for joining in to this week's National Service edition of the Jobs with Jodi podcast. Again, we are sponsored by NPCA's Global Reentry program, and we're really designed to meet the needs of you and what your interests are. So if you have future podcast ideas, please email us at careers@peacecorpsconnect.org. And in the subject line, if you can put podcast topic request, that would be great. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and make it a great day.